Hey, Guinaifen here. Another brand new 4-star unit is out, and she's a very interesting one. She's infamous for a certain GIF, but nerds will appreciate her sub-DPS support kit as an amazing fit for Kafka teams, and maybe even outside of them. She has a kit and Litecoin options that allow her to support many types of teams, and I'm excited to see what people will use her with. Are you pulling for her? Let me know below. In this guide, I'll explain how her kit works in depth, and her best relics and Litecoins. I'll also discuss how good her Eidolons are, pros and cons, and more to see if she's worth more than just an E0. Playstyles and teams will be last but not least. If you like this vid or learned something, like and consider subbing for more guides. Anyway, let's begin. Guinaifen is a 4-star fire unit that follows the Nihility path, the path dedicated to debuffing enemies. She's our first for this combo, which is nice for those running Himiko or Hook in Kafka teams. She will apply her DoT instantly on her skill. There's no ramp up unlike Winches, and she can even do so on her basic. Her talent will ramp up a strong vulnerability debuff on enemies, so they take more damage from all teammates. She can also detonate her own burns for a solid unit at E0. You want to level up her talent with her skill, prioritizing talent for her support power, or skill for sub-DPS power. Ultimate next, and basics are whatever. At level 80 she has one of the lowest base HPs in the game at 882, and an OK base defense of 441. Very squishy, and you actually want some defensive stats for endgame content. Her base stack is 582 and she has a nice speed at 106. She has an average NG cost at 120, and as a Nihility unit, she has a lower chance of being hit over the tankier paths. So let's see why her kit is so interesting. While her basic attack, Standing Ovation might not be. It can apply her burn with her A2 passive, but apart from that is a regular basic, doing 30 toughness damage, regenerating 20 NG and a skill point. Her skill, Blazing Welcome, is a blast attack, hitting a main target and adjacent enemies for lesser damage. It won't do much, but applies Guinaifen's high scaling burn DoT, 218% at level 10. Much nicer than that 30% Himiko multiplier. She has a 100% base chance to apply this, so she will need 67% effect hit rate to guarantee this, and it will last for 2 turns. The skill does 60 toughness damage to the central target, 30 to adjacent ones, and will regenerate 30 NG and consume 1 skill point. Her ultimate, Watch This Showstopper, deals 5 damage to all enemies as well as detonating any burns on these targets, including ally burns or break burns, at a percentage of their original damage. If this breaks an enemy, it will apply the burn before detonation for lots of front-loaded damage. We won't be using Himiko or Hook in the team to potentially abuse their weak burns for this ultimate though, it's for herself and her potential break burns. This ultimate costs 120 NG and will do 60 toughness damage to all targets. Her talent is Patreon Benefits, and you can thank Hanya for this pun. When she's on the field, there is a 100% base chance, so 67% effect hit rate is needed, to apply Fire Kiss to an enemy after they take damage from burn statuses for 3 turns up to 3 stacks of Fire Kiss. So Fire Kiss stacks up and it's a vulnerability debuff, which is a separate multiplier to your damage, increasing all ally damage to the enemies with it by the same percentage. This works with break burns and any ally burns, but again it doesn't mean you bring a whole unit to max out. It is easily maxed out from Guinaifen alone, let alone with Kafka in the team on top. Detonations of course count since they repeat the burn damage, so Guinaifen's ultimate and Kafka's skill and ultimate can all help accumulate stacks on top of the usual enemy turns, ramping it up. She doesn't need her ult unlike Sampo or Luca to apply this on the enemy, and it's for all enemies potentially and for all type of damage, so it's a combo of both of their vulnerabilities, which is very nice. Finally, Guinaifen's technique is Skill Showcase. How fitting. She will literally nuke the enemy, and when entering battle, she will deal damage to 4 random targets with a 100% base chance of applying her Fire Kiss to them. Decent starting technique, but I preferred Kafka's. Now onto Tracer's, one which I really liked for Kafka. High Pulse is her first passive, and lets her basic attack apply her skills burn at an 80% base chance. You'd need a 109% effect hit rate to guarantee this, but with 67% effect hit rate, you have an 80% chance anyway, which is enough, and we'll be using skills regardless. It's a nice bonus. Bladed Hoop is her second passive and I think it's awesome. When the battle begins, so like Von Whack and only on the first wave, her action is advanced by 25%. This is like having a 1.33 times speed boost for the first turn, meaning she should take first turn easily. Why I like this is because Kafka wants a basic or a DoT to ramp up on her first turn's detonation. Patience is all you need. Users can use the speed ramp up on this Litecoin and do this already, but even with her signature or without, this trace means Guinaifen will take first action and let Kafka either apply her own DoT or detonate Guinaifen's DoT. Her final passive is Walking on Knives, and don't do this at home, or anywhere actually. she will do 20% more damage to burnt enemies, so pretty much every target, and contributing to DoT damage. Nice final bonus. Her trace bonuses are in fire damage %, effect hit rate, and break effect, all three being nice for her kit. The only problem is for once we'd actually want HP % or def % for her low base stats. Now, are her Eidolons worth pulling for? Let me know if you're going for any of them. Her first makes her skill have a 100% base chance of reducing the enemy's effect resistance by 10% for 2 turns, the same duration of her burn. This will work for all 3 enemies hit. You technically will need 67% effect hit rate if you want to guarantee it, in order to no longer need the 67% effect hit rate for the burn. But really, the goal of this Eidolon is to reduce stat needs, and you'll now only need 43% effect hit rate in stats, and you'll just have to gamble on this debuff. It also lets you forego some effect hit rate stats on any DoT allies, so this makes Kafka's 29% effect hit rate needs drop to 10% for example. This also counts for good night's sleep wall stacks, and can make her basic applying burn much easier to do. Very cool starting Eidolon. Her second makes her burn stronger after either using her basic or skill on a target she has already burned. It's a 40% multiplier increase, only works on her skill burn and won't do anything for break burns since they don't technically have a multiplier. A nice 12% DPS increase. Her E3 makes her DoT stronger, meaning a 9% DPS increase and more damage from Kafka detonations. Her E4 makes her get 2 energy every time her burns do damage, including break ones, so this procs every enemy turn with her burns or detonations of her burns. This makes her rotation much cleaner and drops a whole action in AoE, and if you want to drop that action in single target, you'll need Kafka on the team detonating your burns, or you'll need a lot of break burns. It's good for fast ultimates, even if they don't do too much damage, it's fast to Fire Kiss ramp up. E6 makes her supportive power hit its max, and with E5 even more so, now having 4 possible stacks of Fire Kiss. You now have a total possible 30.4% vulnerability on enemies. Relics is pretty much the same as Sampo and Luca. 2-piece Fire, 2-piece Musketeer will be her best set, with 2 Fire, 2 Hacker being close behind, alongside 4 Musketeer. 4 Fire is weak and will not be best on her, which is nice since it means less farming of that domain. You can also use the Thief set if going for a break build. If you don't want to farm, you can also wait for the 1.5 livestream to see if we get anything better. For ornaments, her best is technically Pan-Cosmic, but only by the smallest percentage, and the world to farm it is the worst in ornament sets. Go for Space Seeing Station, or my favourite, Fleet of the Ageless, to compensate for her weak base stats. She will need some HP or defense %, so this on top of buffing DoT teammates is nice. Main stats you want attack % or effect hit rate % chest, speed boots, fire damage orb, and attack or break rope. Attack or effect hit rate depends on how much effect hit rate you need to hit your guarantee needs. Speed boots are ideal to keep up with your Kafka. Energy rope is a DPS loss and only shortens her rotation by 1 turn pre-E4. Her ultimate does not do much damage, but this can technically be used to ramp up Fire Kiss a tiny bit faster, which I didn't find was needed, so attack % rope it is, or break if going for a break build. For an ideal stat goal, you want 3k attack, 134 speed, 67% effect hit rate, or 43% minimum at E1. 134 speed is of course not necessarily needed, it's just a min-max option and you can go higher anyway. You'll also probably want 3k HP, 1k defense if you don't want her one-shot, and she actually needs some substats to achieve this. Let's quickly discuss break on her too. It's a common topic for every DoT unit. Fire break is the strongest break alongside physical at a 2x multiplier. That means a lot of front-loaded damage, and that means a break build will perform best on Guinaifen versus Fire weak, just like on Luca versus Physical weak. Just remember that the burn DoT is the weakest DoT, so those detonations will not be doing that much compared to Luca or Sampo on break. It is an option if you want it though, and it's definitely good if you can break like on any break build. I find break really nice if you're going for a more supportive Guinaifen that is just there to apply vulnerabilities and perhaps other debuffs through light cones, meaning she can still do nice damage even if she's not hitting those high attack stats. For light cones, she has the same options as Sampo and Luca pretty much. Good Night Sleep Wall will be best for her personal damage and easily stackable, but her damage isn't that high that I'd necessarily want it on her. Eyes of the Prey offers similar damage due to the fact that it also saves a ton of stats in effect hit rate. Great option. Martyr is a nice free-to-play option, but only possible with Kafka or Sampo on the team. In the Name of the World and Patience is All You Need are other DPS options, and are strong of course, but I like the next options the best. Incessant Rain and Resolution Shines are 2 supportive cones, for more vulnerability or some Death Shred. The Death Shred at S5 will actually be pretty much equal, or even better, than Incessant Rain's vulnerability at S1, since she's already plopping a bunch of vulnerability down. She doesn't lose much damage with Resolution, so the increased damage that Kafka gets from the Death Shred may outpace this damage loss. For rotations, she has a regular 5-turn rotation with 3 basics and 2 skills for a slightly skill point positive rotation. Anjiro bought E4 makes this a 4-turn skill point neutral rotation, but she doesn't really need this ultimate, and when she does, she's at E6 and already has the E4 energy gains. The only problem is the 2 basics that might mean burn wears off, so if you need the burn, you can skill instead for a slightly skill point negative 5-turn rotation. She would need 6 basics for a fully skill point positive rotation, which I wouldn't recommend. Finally, she can use 4 skills for a skill point negative rotation, which I also wouldn't recommend. Now onto pros and cons before we finish with synergies and teams. For pros, we have instant and blast DoT. Luca's is single target, Sampo's can technically be on 5 targets, but that requires ramp up over multiple actions, and if you're fighting a 5 enemy stage, Kafka will probably just one-shot those weaker mobs anyway. No ramp up means you can skill and sit back, though it is 2 turns long to set this back a bit. We have AoE and universal vulnerability next. This is just more damage for your whole team straight up, and again is better than Sampo's and Luca's, and doesn't even need her ultimate to obtain it. Her A4 makes ramp up very easy for Kafka too. The thing you can do is go 157 speed and Von Whack and have 3 actions in the first cycle, which is a fun little afterthought. Her E1 and E6 are nice bonus supportive boosts for the squad too. Finally, we have Fire Element and Strong Burns, meaning Kafka finally has a proper fire teammate. Though Himiko gamers, keep doing you and don't let me stop you. For cons, we have her weak base stats. I actually got one shot when recording footage for this video. Fush 1 mitigates this, but DoT teams don't generally run Fush 1, and not everyone has her. We also have her kind of wonky rotation, which either loses her skill point or some burn uptime. Her damage is also kind of weak, and burn break DoT is weak, so despite having some better synergies with Kafka over Sampo and Luca, she won't be doing crazy damage and they'll still be relevant versus their element weaknesses. I would say I prefer her over Sampo though in non-weak AoE fights. For synergies, the obvious are the DoT friends. Kafka will be her best and will enjoy Guinaifen's supportive power as well as her debuffs and dots. She provides detonations for the Firekiss wrap-up, she detonates Guinaifen's dots for her own damage, and she can even increase said damage with her Eidolons. Guinaifen's kit is pretty synergistic, and with E1 and Resolution, you can instantly stack Goodnight Sleep well for your Kafka in one skill, which is pretty cool. Sampo and Luca can dual dot with Guinaifen if you like too. Asta is synergistic for Kafka teams, but will also be boosting Guinaifen's power slightly with her attack percent and fire damage percent buffs. The speed is always nice too for more detonations over the duration of a fight. Pella and Silverwolf apply enemy debuff modifiers for better DoT damage, since attack percent is very saturated, and damage percent kind of too with stuff like Goodnight Sleep well. For teams, you have a classic Kafka comp with the brand new Guinaifen. This team will be Kafka, Guinaifen, Asta, and a solo sustain, great into AoE, fire weak enemies especially. You can substitute Asta with Pella, but the speed from Asta is amazing for Kafka's detonations. You can try triple DoT, but with the 4-star DoT sub DPS or having weak stats, it's very prone to accidents, and it's just easier to invest into 2 DoT units and have a harmony like Asta. Comments on my Himiko guide suggested a Himiko synergy, but she doesn't bring anything I'd say is insanely worth over a second Harmony or Topaz. She brings additional burns for easier passive uptime for Himiko, but that's only 20% damage bonus on skills. Himiko can help with Firekiss I guess too, but again, Guinaifen won't be beating the likes of Bronya, Tingyun, Asta, Topaz. Finally, you can try and put Guinaifen in a team where a Pella would go. It may be a bit cope though. She gives more damage amp over Pella at E6 into 3 or less enemies, with the 30% vulnerability beating the damage amp of 40% defense shred. If you have any extra defense shred though, like Pella with Resolution, then Guinaifen's vulnerability is weaker, and Guinaifen can't provide the skill points Pella can without foregoing her ramp up, which is much harder without Kafka and a 6-turn basic rotation, though I still think she's a decent budget support all things considered. So let me know if you ended up pulling for Guinaifen and what you think of her. Thanks to all my amazing members, thanks for watching and have a good day.